Three, two, one. We are live.
This is 2OF Entertainment.
Joe, do you know why some businesses succeed and some businesses fail? Why some businesses grow and some businesses don't? That's what this show is all about. Business, business, business. I like that. Plus various members and guests.
Various members and guests. And
That's
here
because
we
we're
are.
just too cheap to do graphics every week. So, well, welcome to YouTube or the podcast, depending on where you're catching it. For you people on the podcast, we have a special guest this week, Michael Collins. He's been on many times.
Michael Collins returns with great insights about the multinational status of what's going on in America.
There you go.
And, good to have you back, Mike.
Well, let me begin by showing my book again.
Of course.
The American Dream. I spent the last 5 years working on the research of what the multinational corporations have done to the economy for the last 40 years.
Yes.
But then in 2018, they helped me out because 181 of the CEOs signed a pledge saying that they were now committed to benefiting all stakeholders, not just shareholders. So I seized on that, and since 2018, I've been gathering information to try to see if they were making progress in this commitment. Now, the commitment said they were going to lead their companies not just for the benefit of their investors, but for the benefit of all stakeholders, which includes customers, employees, suppliers, and communities. And Jamie Dimon, who was the head of the committee, J.P. Morgan Chase, commented that the American dream is alive but fraying. Major employers are investing in their workers and communities because they know it's the only way to be successful over the long term. These modernized principles reflect the business community's unwavering commitment to continue to push for an economy that serves all Americans. I mean, that's
bold statements, big statements.
So what I'd like to do today is just show you some of the things I found in investigating whether these multinational corporations are making progress in this commitment. Start off with are they paying their fair share of taxes? Well, it turns out that the multinational, the ones that have companies overseas, according to the Institute for Taxation and Economic Policy, are avoiding $767 billion in federal income taxes by holding more than $2.6 trillion overseas in profits offshore. So they're still using the tax havens. Now, why is this important? The U.S. based corporations, particularly manufacturers that are still making business here, end up paying twice as much in federal tax as these multinationals do.
Wait. If I remember, though, a few years ago, the U.S. government said to Apple and the rest of them, they would give them a tax abatement and let them bring their money in almost tax-free. And they all declined it. So I think that's a lot to be said about they don't trust the government, the IRS, and anybody else, too. So, if I have $2 trillion sitting offshore and I can spend it, I'm okay with that. I think the government needs to redo our tax structure. That's just me. I don't know anything, but.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk about compensation.
Okay.
The Economic Policy Institute shows that CEO compensation packages increased 940% between 1978 and 2018. Now, the kicker is the average employee wage rate increased 12%. So basically, the employees didn't stay up with inflation, and the CEOs have gotten incredibly wealthy during this period of time. At the same time, during the same period, I found this research project called The China Shock by David Autor, and he found that about a third of they measured 722 regions in the United States, and a third of them suffered absolute declines in real per capita income after the Chinese were approved into the WTO. So this means that the open door for Chinese imports, largely done by the multinationals, reduced the incomes of 1/3 of the public.
Yeah.
Well, that's because the public, though, is inherently stupid and they want cheap goods. They don't want to keep, as Trump would say, America great. And you also have greedy CEOs like Elon Musk, who laid off 14,000 people, but got himself a, $56 billion pay package. So there's a lot of, I agree with what you're saying. There's just a lot of pledge, which is all mental masturbation because none of them want to do it. None of the CEOs that I know or speak of, whether it's a Fortune 500 or it's a private, no, everyone's out for themselves. Unfortunately, that's the way the world is now. And I feel bad for the economies, but America wants cheap goods. We get them. Xi said today to the Secretary of State, we need to stop fighting and need to work together. We're forcing them to sell TikTok because, secrecy laws. Okay, maybe. But we're getting into dangerous areas again where you're going to see more of what you're saying. CEOs here are going to take more money. Americans are going to get hurt more. And no one's really going to do anything about it. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat.
Well, from 2018, Mike, what have you? So, at least for the CEO compensation, has there been any acceleration of wages since the pledge itself in 2018?
Well, in the last year, you guys all know that they've made some gains. The UAW strike made some gains. There's been some other union things. They've made a little bit, but they're way behind. And just talk a minute about the political implications of the middle class having lost about 10% of their wealth in the last 30 years. Politically, I think this is bad because the people, particularly the people who are high school educated workers, really lost out. And they don't seem to know how this happened. So politically, it's a hot potato right now, and it's going to be in the election because these people are unhappy, they're angry, but they're not really sure how they ended up in the jam they're in economically. And I see it playing out politically. What do you think about that?
Let me just say this really quick. They can thank Ronald Reagan, who was a Republican, for all this because he's the one that pushed everything aside and said, listen, we don't need this, we don't need that, and it's go, go, go. So, the Republicans who are complaining, listen, I'm not a Republican or Democrat. I'm just an independent social communist, which works well for me, from the Whig Party, but which is an old Republican party. But at the end of the day, the Republicans started the ball rolling. Now they don't know what to do with it. So they're blaming the Democrats. And it's sort of like if you want to, not have this and not have that and have controls and have price control and constraints and you want this free market, this is what you get. The strong survive. So, until you can get everybody to agree like your pledge, and great, anybody's going to sign a piece of paper. It makes them look good, right? Stock price goes up 10% because I signed a piece of paper that says I'm going to be a warm, wonderful company. They're not going to do it because no one holds your feet to the fire. Ever. Except you,
the problem,
which is great.
I think the problem here is that we have two systems, right? We have a somewhat free, aspirational free market capitalism in the West, and then we have a system that's communism, which is completely different. And we can't, the two can't compete because we're not at the level playing field. So we're always going to lose because they think as one, and they have an industrial policy, and they pursue it, and we don't. So our system can't cope with something that's inherently opposite of what we are. And the second part is that the people that have high school degrees, the problem we have there is that we know that the educational system has gone to pot. Now, whatever the reasons are, but if you're a high schooler and you're honest with yourself and you passed all the grades, but you can't really read very well, and you don't have basic mathematical skills that we need today, or you can't operate a sophisticated computer system, that manufacturing today requires, then a little bit of the onus is on you. Partially the system that hasn't helped you, get to the level where you're supposed to. But so it's a complicated thing. But in the end, we can't compete with people that like China that that are. It's not free market economics there. There it's okay. What does the Politburo decide? Are they going to be the winners, and who are the companies that are going to get funded with trillions of yuan, and then use that system to employ people and dump goods below cost in the world to gain market share, destroy competition, and then sort of take over the market. I mean,
Now, are you saying that's
need
a bad thing, John?
Well, we can't compete against that. We can't compete
Nobody
against
can.
that. Yeah, so that's our dilemma. How do we compete? How do we go against our very own system to be able to compete with somebody that doesn't do it at our level? Because if you go to China, everybody's looking for the buck, but you can't take the money out of China. You have to it's sort of, what we've done is ridiculous, but we don't have boards that think strategically. They're just rubber stamp CEO, strategy, which is maximize their pockets. So it's
Because they're only worried about the shareholders now. Nobody cares about what happens tomorrow. They're only worried about this quarter.
they don't really worry about the shareholders. They just worry about stock price, that it benefits them. The idea that they care about shareholders, I think is illusional. They throw money at us, but in the long run, their strategy, is detrimental to shareholders.
But John, I think you really hit on something. In fact, it's a future article for me, but China is committed to mercantilism. They are into government subsidies, dumping at below cost, corporate espionage, and a whole range of things. The issue is, we know that because they've been doing it ever since they got most favored nation status, but we don't do enforcement on anything. Even right now on the NAFTA agreement, Mexico is dumping steel conduit into the country in massive, way beyond what the agreement was in NAFTA. And there's, crybaby but we don't do enforcement in this country. It's a strange thing, but no matter what the agreement is, we just don't do penalties. And for somebody like China, who's committed to mercantilism, they see us as a paper tiger. They do things and apologize and keep doing them. They know that there won't be penalties.
Yeah.
Well, the embargo that we've tried to do with them is kind of hurting them. But like I said, what's his face? Xi met with our Secretary of State and he says we need to work together. So I think that they're right now having a little bit of an economic problem over there. So because of that, I think they realized that what John was just describing, undercutting and government isn't working either. You can only do that so long, right? You can only print so much money with Chairman Mao. So, and then after that, you got to do something different. So I think they're trying now to figure out how to do it because they realize the younger population over there isn't working. There is no money, and there's a whole list of issues. So if you want to look at it into that respect, if the two countries don't work together, this is going to hurt not just the U.S. and China. It hurts the globe because then it's going to be like this competitive. What, we're going to go to India? I mean, what are you going to? You know what I'm saying? So it just propagates to the next level, to the next level, to the next level. So at some point, we all have to get along and go, this is what we're going to do to make it fair across the board. So, and I think that's what China's trying to do right now, because I think they realize the last 20 years they've hurt themselves, not actually helped themselves.
Well, we'll see. But John's point, they're an authoritarian government, and the Communist Party dictates economic policy. It'll be interesting. They have their troubles now, as Stephen said, but it'll be interesting to see whether the Communist Party is flexible enough to be able to do something to stay in the game, because they got a lot of problems. Let me shift it back to our thing about one way that these CEOs and their companies could have proved that they were really interested in the stakeholders is to do what they do in Europe, and that is have worker representatives on the board of directors. And so I really spent a lot of time on this and looking. I could find 0 corporations, U.S. multinationals, that were interested in putting worker representations on the board. It just didn't happen. So I think that my comment is they're afraid to do that because as soon as they get the worker representatives, they're afraid that they would challenge executive compensation packages and stock buybacks.
Stock buybacks is dumb.
And rightfully so.
That's the dumbest thing in the world. Stock buybacks are the dumbest thing in the world. That money should be used either for the employees or for, enhancing something. But buying back your company's stock for billions of dollars, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. When they do that, I'm like, idiots. It's just
who are they doing it for?
Well, I know what they're doing it for.
It's very strategic, though, as a problem that in 2022, they did $923 billion in stock buybacks. The problem with stock buybacks is that they are not investing in the company. And I found this survey by the Roosevelt Institute, and it showed that back in the 70s and 80s, the multinationals were devoting about 40 cents of the profit dollar to physical plant, equipment, R&D, wages, the companies as they were there. Today, it's fallen to 10 cents on the dollar. So that's a huge loss. So it means no investment domestically. If there was a strategy, in my opinion, that would really prove that corporations were changing their ways, it would be to reduce share buybacks. But I see no evidence that they're going to back away from this. This is the fastest way for them to get the money. And so it appears to me that it's still focused on the shareholders, and they still want to get rich as fast as possible in the thing, and they're not buying. And so it's a two-pronged thing. They're not investing in their own domestic companies, and they're just taking the money, and running. And it's because of the way the executive packages, compensation packages are designed. A lot of it, as you guys know, is based on share prices.
Yeah.
And so they don't seem to want to back away from that. And if they don't, I think this is really the critical issue. If they won't do this, then there's not going to be an investment in the domestic operations. What do you think?
I don't think there's ever going to be. I think people are they want everything. They need apparently you need 7 houses. You need 42 supercars. The guy from Jeffries just sold $65 million in stock, so he can buy a super yacht that's 153 meters or 153 feet long. So no, people want to say, "Look at me, I'm wealthy." It's not the good old days, unfortunately, where people actually cared about what the workers and they cared about the employee. It is very much a how much money am I going to make? Oh, he died. Okay, get somebody else cheaper. This is happening. Great. Let's replace him with a robot. This is going on. We invest in companies that invest are AI companies. I know what's going to happen to the American worker. There aren't going to be any. But here's the funny part about it is when I say that, I also then look at it like, great, our portfolio will go up 100x. Okay. So it's this very weird thing coming from Wall Street. I want more money. I want more of this. I want more of that. I want more of that so we can reinvest. Running a company, I want the best for my employees. So it's a double-edged sword, and that's what's happening with your CEOs. They all want to keep their jobs because they're getting, $1 to $50 million a year, or Elon, 56 billion. And they know if they don't do this, they don't have a job, they don't have the money, they don't have whatever they have. So most of them don't care about the employee who makes $75,000 or $50,000 or $20,000 a year. And that's where the issue is. They don't even know who those people are. And that's a difference. Back in the day, they knew their employees. They CEOs would walk the plant floor. They don't walk the plant floor. They didn't know where their plants were located.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but I think the problem really lies with boards. The board of companies, are not really independent. It's a small club of people that rotate between, we're talking now the big companies, but that rotate the roles, and they're all part of the let's call it a system or a way of thinking, and it's this thinking that if share prices go up, we need to compensate the CEO. I think there's where the crux of the issue lies. Once we could solve that, we begin to solve some of the other problems. I think that's where the focus should be. I don't know, as a country, as an educational system. Yeah, we're not going to be able to solve it unless we get people owning shares and then voting shares in a certain way.
And even then, you've got to be educated and you've got to be thoughtful about what you're doing to actually vote and do the research on that.
And you got to read the proxies.
One suggestion, gentlemen, by Elizabeth Warren is she wants to tax the stock buybacks. What do you think of that solution?
Yeah, but the thing is about the buybacks is a byproduct of taxation of dividends. Right? So companies say, okay, look, we're not going to give you dividends. We'll buy the stock. You'll get capital gains, which is taxed differently than income, right? Because when you get a dividend, it goes straight to your it's income, whereas buybacks a couple of either short-term or long-term capital gains, depending on obviously the situation, but it's a different tax proposition. And so that's what's forced instead of paying a dividend, they'll do the buyback. So the thing was, in Congress we have people that don't really understand the world, that they're trying to regulate. I mean, if they did, we wouldn't have all the issues we have in the U.S. But think of all the little, just the tax system is a ridiculously complicated thing for individuals. I mean, come on, we haven't updated the deduction for tax for investment losses from $3,000 in, I don't know, ever since I've been in this country. That's 45 years. Yeah. So,
was that legally, John? Was there a wall? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Look,
let me move to another example that I really follow all the time: pharmaceutical companies. Now I have the list of the 181 CEOs, and I found 5 or 6 of these big drug companies signed the pledge. But what they're into, as you guys probably know, they're into buying patents and creating monopolies so that they can control pricing and market share and get rid of competitors. That's what they're into. And so what we've got is, and they are totally have focused in the last 40 years in offshoring a lot of the drugs. Most of the material in the drugs come from either India or China now. So between the monopoly and offshoring,
with concerns about purity and
Yes.
quality,
big time problems. So between buying up patents and offshoring drugs to China and India, Americans are faced with drug shortages of critical medicines and drug prices 2 to 3 times as high as Europe. That's where we are. So the sky was the limit for these guys to benefit stakeholders, particularly consumers, but I could find almost no evidence that they're trying to do anything to benefit stakeholders. But they're still focused on holders and monopoly pricing. What do you think?
Well, I go back to this. I go back to this letter, Mike, and I think, why sign it? Why do it in the first place? Why even put something like that out there? Okay, virtue signaling. It makes you feel good. It makes the stock price maybe go up if people want to say that that's a good thing in 2018. But now, who's going to hold them to it anyway? Who can hold them to it anyway? I mean, could you have the employees actually say, "Look, you signed this letter in 2018, and we're still struggling 6 years later"? Or what, government regulators are going to do it, or consumers are going to do it?
To that point, the Wall Street Journal last year came out with an editorial, and they said for this pledge to be legally binding, you have to go through and do a reformulation of the corporate purpose and get it approved by the board. Then Harvard Law Review, they did a review of all the people who signed the pledge. They found one company that reformulated it and had the board approval. So all of them signed the pledge without any approval by the board. So legally, to your point, nobody's bound to anything.
Yeah.
The governance is just not there.
Yeah, I think
one other example is the idea of climate change, and I really follow the oil and gas industry because they're about 26% of the total carbon footprint in the country, and so if they can't get their carbon down, we have little chance. Now, if you go back and read all the stuff that Exxon and Chevron have put out, they say publicly they're totally committed to a net zero carbon footprint. However, I found that they just did their forecast. Exxon, Chevron, ConocoPhillips, and Shell have forecast $191 billion in new oil and gas exploration by 2030.
So it's not slowing down. Yeah.
When they say they're going to lower their carbon footprint, the issue is they don't say when, but they're committed to it, but not when. So I'm okay that they're going to spend up $200 billion to go find more oil and gas because they're going to lower their carbon footprint. I mean, in the next 6,000 years, and that's fine. So, I mean, it's all about wording, guys. Words mean everything.
The pharmaceutical issue, a lot of, we have oligopolies really, in so many of these key industries. And the problem is we have laws, we have, rules that we set up to avoid this type of concentration, and the freaking government that hasn't done it. now they're beginning to do a few things here and there, but they really don't have, they haven't used their big stick to say, you know what, no, you can't merge, you can't acquire this other company. Look at the airline industry. We got what? We got 3, maybe 4 companies. 4, yeah.
4 have 86% of the gates.
Yeah. So, it's I think the failure is the government that doesn't said, hey, no, can't do that merger. We need the competition. We need a minimum of at least X amount of people in the
But that was
business.
deregulation in the 80s, John. That's what Reagan did. He deregulated everything, and so now you see the crux of it.
The government is
deregulation is not regulating companies with all sorts of rules, but that doesn't mean that the government said, oh, you can start all of a sudden having monopolies on every industry. No, that's some rules of engagement.
We go back to what Cory Doctorow was talking about, is the antitrust situation and Milton Friedman's school of thinking, and that leading to after the late 70s the monopolization of all these industries, a huge number of industries just being controlled by just a few top companies. So what you're pointing at is how does the government of today, which in my opinion is for the most part captured by these very same entities,
Yes.
How do you dismantle these massive power structures that are monopolies essentially in all of these industries?
Well, you have to come up with a huge program of antitrust. And I got to back to what Stephen said. It all began during Reagan. He hired a lawyer, and this Judge Bork got involved, and they went in and changed the rules on monopolies in the Supreme Court. They got a change where instead of competition being the focus of monopolies, they changed it to protecting consumers.
Mm-hmm.
And so after that, there has just been a flood, and now it's oligopolies and monopolies in almost every industry. So it's now today the Biden administration has been making waves about this and saying that they want to push, and there's some support in the Senate, but they've got to unravel 40 years of merges and in almost every industry and market niche, it's dominated now by so the competition part and the price part went out the window, and then when they changed it to go ahead.
If future, let's say somebody listening to the show is interested in getting into the political scene and being a representative for these issues that we're talking about, are we saying that maybe the one linchpin to pull on is antitrust? Because I think this has come up many times on the show lately, is that the monopoly and oligopoly situation is what's causing all of these other ancillary problems with not caring about stakeholders, with price protections, with actually harming the consumer in the long run because there's less competition. Could somebody run on antitrust?
Well,
that's a good one. I don't think so.
It's a good one.
Nobody knows what that means.
It may be.
We got an educated force.
It may be that you can't do much about all of the oligopolies that have been formed, and the administration may only be able to deal with them as they come up. And one right now that they're dealing with is in beef and pork and chicken. There's 4 companies now that pretty much control all the prices in the markets, and they're killing off the ranchers and the little companies because they're squeezing all of the margins out of them. They're dealing with that. So it may be that the only way they can deal with it is to take them as they come up, and try to stop them from becoming monopolies. I don't see that it would be an overwhelming antitrust. They'd have to hire 1,000 lawyers to go back and do antitrust for all
Well,
these.
they want to hire 86,000 IRS agents, so why don't we hire 1,000
86,000 lawyers. Yeah.
lawyers? That's right.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
problem is when you talk, could someone run on antitrust, which is be very interesting. But unfortunately, John, you think there's an educated public out there, and first that they read, and second they know what antitrust is,
No, I
and
never
third
said
that
that.
they care.
I mean,
No.
I think I mean I was hoping that there would be that. I don't
Oh,
believe
okay.
there actually
But
is.
my point is, there's no way because they don't
Frame it
know.
properly.
You couldn't even frame it properly. People want, they just want someone to go, oh, I like him because he dresses nice. Nobody really listens to the issues. When you ask somebody when they vote for so-and-so, tell me the issue. The Trump stuff is the rhetoric you always hear. The Biden stuff is because he's just not Trump. But if you start going down into the granular level of like a senator or a congressman or a mayor or whatever, most people have no clue what an issue is when they vote.
It's the most okay. So you could say Mike is saying dismantling existing monopolies is a pipe dream, and maybe it is.
But we did that once.
But if you that's right, we did it. We did it way back.
AT&T, we did the baby bells, and 10 years later, okay, you can bring it back. So we've done that, and we decided that we don't want to do that again.
I think in the meat industry, we can certainly do that. They could divest certain, plants in different parts of the country, and farmers, cattlemen can create a cooperative and start buying them, and we could get rid of the four guys that control the entire meat market, and we could, get a fair price that's delivered to the actual producer, not the the end middleman monopoly. That I think is easy to do, and what's it going to cause?
You think reforming these monopolies across the board in the framework of cooperatives, worker owned or at least more producer owned cooperatives, could be a way through?
Yeah,
Karl Marx is with us today. That's nice. Right. Hey, Karl, how's it going? Hey, Karl Marx is with us today, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, the funny
thing what we have is what we have right now is practically Karl Marx,
right?
Because we got four guys that control everything, and
it's un-American. I mean, if you call it un-American, which it is un-American,
it's un-American.
If you want to find some kind of a solution, it goes back to the big four. You have to find a way to stop them from controlling prices in all the market niches. They control prices. And that I think it was an example of a pig farmer since late 1990s. Their margins that they get from selling their pigs dropped 39%. So they're down, squeezed to, down. So to attack it, you got to start with the prices and the people who control them. That's
maybe you could do. I mean, that is very American, actually, is to want prices to be equitable, fair, enhancing competition.
That's not happening. That's a fantasy.
If we break up
on K Street.
Yeah, no,
I hear you. I hear the lobbyists on K Street. Right, they're already out there.
Not the price. You break up the four and make them 10. Right. Meat packing companies, and then you got competition. At this stage,
never happened.
You got. Wow, that's a different story. That's because
there's no. I'm just saying. There's no. It's not going to happen because between the lobbyists, between their congressmen and the senators that they pay off every year with election, like here's money for your election, and all, never happened. It's just going to, unfortunately, as much as we would like the CEO pledge to actually do something at 2018, it's actually gotten worse in the last 6 years, and it's not going to get better. And unfortunately, we'll keep doing shows about it, but nobody cares. That's the problem. Everybody's just out for their little piece of whatever they can get, whether it's $1 or $1 billion. That's what people are looking at. The CEOs, like I said,
there is a glimmer of hope in the sense that the fact that this letter exists, this pledge even exists at all, shows that there is still some little bit of concept out there that says that competition and caring about your stakeholders and caring about your community is still virtuous, even if nobody's actually practicing it. The
That's the
idea is still somewhere floating out there, and the people who aren't practicing it aren't the people who are. I mean, I would say that the people who are running the show are really the ones who are at the top when we're talking about controlling these industries. It's
Right.
not that everybody doesn't want this virtuous reality to exist. It's a small few at the top who's going against this more virtuous, community-minded approach.
Maybe.
It's true. You know, I think that one of the reasons that they're doing it is they're afraid. I know there was an interview of the chairman of Home Depot, whose name escapes me. He said publicly that if they couldn't do more for stakeholders, he was afraid that there would be some kind of a revolt. And
Eric Decker.
You know, he made case. And I think that there's logic in that. I think they are afraid. But what it all gets down to when you look at what they did versus what they pledged is it's all focused on the word profit. Right. What they should have said was at the end of the pledge, they would have been comma, unless it reduces profit or increases costs. We're willing. So if it seems in every case, if they saw it as reducing their profit or increasing costs, then they weren't interested.
Right.
So profit and costs were the drivers in the CEO pledge in the end.
I love it. It's like, oh, by the way, it's like, you know, if your car doesn't have tires and gas, it's not going to run. It's the same thing. It's like, oh, by the way, if it's going to interfere with any profit, stock price, or, you know, cost, probably not going to do it. So, welcome to America.
You know, it sounds like we need somebody to run on like a pro-American antitrust plank or platform.
John, we're going to support you. Your job is to this November.
Pro-American antitrust platform.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, you know, unless they were really willing to make financial sacrifices to get this done, the pledge then ended up being no more than a PR initiative.
Which
and somebody said early on that if it is, you know, it does make them look good. They can write in their newsletter, you know, and they can appear to be caring about stakeholders, but I could find very little evidence of any real gains or benefits to stakeholders. I'm sure there must be some out there, but I could find none. But I find endless examples like these of where they are not. They're still focusing on shareholders and their own executives. So I see it as a PR initiative. That's really what it's come out to be. So,
that's kind of what we said at the beginning of it. It was just, it's like, let's sign it. Let's let our stock jump 10 or 20% and call it a day. That's a shame though, because if 1% or 10% of the people that signed it would actually do something and made a little bit of change, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But unfortunately, as we said, it's not going that way. So, and Elizabeth Warren and all these other, nothing's happening. A lot of talk, nothing's happening. You can have all the Senate and Congress hearings you want, and blah, blah, blah. Nothing's happening because nobody has balls anymore to do anything. They're just beholden to whoever writes a check. And that's a shame.
Well, you know, and just looking at Congress from the outside, it's perplexing to me. They, particularly in the House, they seem to be stumbling over each other and they can't seem to get anything done. You know, the old horse trading that they used to during, you know, the Lyndon Johnson era, they just can't seem to do it anymore. They can't seem to get their act together to come up with any installation. It's just, I don't know that I've ever seen such a non-functional group, in my time. They just can't seem to get their act together.
It depends on how you define functional. If you look at, I get a newsletter, a quantitative finance newsletter that tracks all of the trades of Congress people, and they're doing very well.
Yeah,
doing very well.
That's a whole nother show.
Metric.
Yeah,
that's a whole nother show. We should do a whole show just on how Congress senators can trade on insider information and not go to jail.
That's a big one. I mean, that's a
That's
really
a big
big
show. That's a whole show into itself.
No, the title should be
color their decision making.
You come in poor and end up rich.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah,
that's very true.
Yeah.
Michael, it's always a pleasure to see you, my friend. We are going to do Lost and Found. We'll see you next quarter. We always like when you're here.
Let me ask you guys a question before you jump off. Now this is recorded, isn't it?
Yes, we're doing it. It's live
right now.
So can you send me the recording via email?
Yes,
sure.
we will.
We'll send you the link on YouTube, so you can, and we'll send you, and wherever you get podcasts, you can listen to it.
Okay, my next article coming up that's going to be published is on monopolies and oligopolies and this stuff we just talked about.
Awesome.
So I'll be anxious to hear what you guys. I think I already got a feeling for where you are on, but it'll be interesting to hear what you think about it when you see just how much they control.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we'll see you. And then we'll see you soon after the article, and we can talk about it.
Okay.
Michael, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Have a great weekend. Thank you so much for your time again today.
Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome, Bub. Goodbye.
Cheers. I love him. He's great. He got, if you look at his haircut, he's got a little slick thing going on there. It's like he's styling, Mr. Mike. I like it. He was styling. That was very good. I like it. But we should do a show about how senators and congressmen can buy and trade stocks. And it's not illegal for them to trade on inside information. Maybe we should do that. Oh, next week we have Gandalf. Maybe the week after.
We've got a few guests coming up, but we will let's plan for that, because I think our listeners would love to hear a show on congressional insider trading, because it's the open secret that everybody knows.
Yeah,
and nobody's doing anything about it.
Yeah,
if there's trouble from it, we just told David and Nick.
Yeah,
it was David and Nick's idea. And we give them their address. So if the Senate or the congressman wants somebody to go after, David and Nick's idea, we'll give you their addresses. Don't worry about it.
That's right. It's the foreign influences.
The foreign influence on the show. It wasn't the Americans. All right, gentlemen, are we ready for Lost and Found? John, do you have your Lost and Found today?
Yeah, I have a couple of Lost and Found.
Right,
welcome to this week's Lost and Found, uncovering dollar winners and losers, where we discuss dollars lost and dollars gained by various companies and projects.
All right. Mr. John, please. What do you have?
Okay, so BHP, which is an Australian mining, which is probably the largest, biggest diversified miner in the world, put in an offer to buy Anglo American, which is another big mining company. For 39 billion. Anglo American said we're not good enough, because they want the biggest, one of the biggest mines in copper mines in South America, which Anglo American has, because that's becoming a big thing for if we're going to go into this crazy ride of electric, you need copper. Without that, so. Anyway, so I don't know who, if that's a win or a loss,
For the one group, it's a win because they're going to get more money maybe for the buyout. So that's a cha-ching. And for the other group right now, it's a loss because they're going to spend more money. So it's a catch-22.
Yeah, somebody's winning, the other side's losing. Yeah, Anglo American, I think, is going to make a lot more.
BHP is going
to have to, put up
step it
more.
up. It was actually a whole article today in the Financial Times about that, and I was reading it. I was just chuckling the whole time I'm reading it. I'm like, 39 billion is not good enough. We're thinking more like 50 to 60, and even that may not work for us. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
well,
We'll see how
come
desperate
on.
they are for basically the copper side. And the other
that's
one
true.
that I have is Hertz. We talked about this a couple of months ago. They said, "Hey, look, we have a whole bunch of electric cars. We're not renting them. Nobody wants them. They cost a lot of money to fix. So we're gonna get rid of 20,000."
Yeah.
They came out this week and said, "You know what? We're losing money big time. We're going to sell 30,000 electric cars that we have. We can just."
Wow. They're going to give them away.
Yeah, pretty much. I
Okay.
think, okay, so dollar lost, millions lost for Hertz. And
Yeah.
I would say also
It's
Tesla.
$1 for the people that are going to buy.
There you go. Flood the
Yeah.
market.
And for the electric market, not so good because they're dumping cars and they're mostly Teslas, I believe. That's what they said.
Yeah.
So,
well, crappy car.
yeah.
What are you going to do? So.
Yeah. So there you go. That's my lost and found.
That's too funny. Those are two good ones, John. That's awesome. Mr. Michael, what do you have for us?
Well, I mean, I'm going to continue on the electric vehicle sad train because Ford reported a massive loss on every electric vehicle it sold. So it sold 10,000 vehicles in the first 3 months of this year, and it lost $132,000 a vehicle.
Wow,
which is insane.
Yeah, that is crazy.
It's crazy numbers. Now, you could call it mismanagement. You could call it the state of the electric market, vehicle market, but it's not good for electric vehicles, and it's just more evidence that maybe we're going down the wrong path with EVs. Let's see.
And what's really funny about EVs is they cause more pollution to make an EV with environmental digging. Long term, it's more pollution. Just keep the petro cars. So when Michael's talking about BP and Shell, I'm like, no, you keep going for oil because we're not giving this up so quick. So
it's not going to be exactly. It's much more complicated than anyone wants. Than I think the eco people want to acknowledge.
Talk about
And you have to acknowledge it because you can't fight reality. You can't fight it.
Well, you can. But we're here to put you back in your place. That's right. There you go. Well,
nature's going to put you back in your place. That's right.
All right. Well, here's something for the. Here's some
negative one for you.
Yeah, one more. There's one more.
I've got one more loss for the world this time. Is another reason to hate Russia. They are
another reason.
They are vetoing the UN resolution on nuclear weapons in space, saying that they don't want to vote against prohibiting the placement of nuclear weapons in space.
Wow.
And China, our good friends in China, abstained.
John loves them.
But as a permanent member of the Security Council, Russia's vote acted as a veto, preventing the adoption of this resolution.
Wow. Then look at it this way, John. The two favorite countries you love are going to kill the planet with nuclear weapons. Yeah. Congratulations.
Nuclear weapons in space. In space.
In space. They're going to. Here's what's really funny about this in space thing, right? That's great that they want to put nuclear weapons there and whatever, and we're all going to blow each other up. That's fine. Us at the Illuminati, if you could speed this up, we've got plans. All right. So if you guys can help destroy the world a little quicker, let's just get it going. So to touch on I have a few, but to touch on the electric vehicles, the Cybertruck was recalled, I guess, because the accelerator pedal got stuck. So the Cybertruck has been recalled because of that. Flying taxis, because everyone likes to talk about flying taxis, will be in the UAE in the year 2025 or 2026.
Wow!
Now
the UAE.
They did a test run from Abu Dhabi to Dubai. It's like a 30-minute flying taxi, and I'm thinking it only took me 45 minutes in a car, so I'm not sure where the benefit is there. For you people that are old, like John and I, Michael's still a young guy. Voyager 1, a couple of weeks ago, sent another message, and Voyager 1 was launched in 1977.
That's amazing.
Just so a long time ago.
And it's when we built things that actually lasted.
Like I was just saying, build it today. It's a week and a half. That Voyager 1. And then the other thing, TikTok, there's two things on TikTok. First of all, in 260 some odd days, you will no longer be able to download TikTok, upload TikTok, meaning you put videos or anything to it. So TikTok is going to be going bye-bye. And TikTok is going up for sale. So if you have, I think, a few $1 billion, you don't know what to do with, feel free to buy it. And then it gets out of the evil Chinese hands and apparently in a US company's hand. And then TikTok will be TikTok. And last but not least, my favorite story of the week, because this just makes us here at the Illuminati love the world even better, that the military conflicts that drive military spending for the first time are at an all-time high on the planet.
On the planet.
It's in trillions. It's the first time. It's like the highest it's ever been when you look at GDP and what it was this huge article in the FT about it and one in The Economist. And I was just like, I see our work is almost done.
That's
so,
right.
Yeah, so we are going to all kill each other, apparently. So hence why the Russians have to put nuclear weapons in
That's
space.
Right.
There
well,
you go.
When you've got trillions of dollars going into the military-industrial complex, you got to do something.
There you go. This is a crazy.
Crazy.
It's just what I do now is like I start reading the papers every day, but on Sunday I start making little notes of things, and I'm like, what would be cute? And this whole week I was just like, every day there was like, this is ridiculous. This is it. So the good news was like the flying car figure in Voyager, which I got today. The rest of it, I was just every time I read something, I was like, this is just, oh my God, where are we going?
Perfect for Lost and Found.
Well, that was a very good thing for Lost and Found, and they are all very good. John's the Hertz thing, of course, my favorite. I think that's the best. And yours, Michael, was very good. Everybody. And
good
Fan,
job.
Thank you. And don't forget our podcast. You can catch it every Saturday morning, wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon, wherever you get it at 6 o'clock Eastern time. You can see the show here in Utah, 6 o'clock Eastern time. We're here every Saturday. And next week, I think we have a full crew. And we also have Gandalf, the blockchain guru, will be here to spout wisdom. And we'll throw some curveballs at him just for fun. After this show, if I'm not mistaken, is No Snobs or Knobs. And after that is a new show called Habana Nights and Cigars and Drinks, where we have Cuban cigars and we have scotch, and we invite fictional dinner guests to come and enjoy dinner with us. And we did it. Michael saw the James Bond one. We were all in tuxedos.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Lots of good shows.
You guys are more than welcome to be on that show, but the only stipulation is you got to have a cigar and a scotch while you do it.
Cigar and a scotch.
There you go.
No cigar for me.
Yeah, John's like, no, not happening. Don't worry, John. I have enough for both of us. Gentlemen, always a pleasure. To everybody, thank you. Don't forget to subscribe and like, and we will see you here next Saturday morning. Have a great one, everybody. Cheers.
All right. Cheers.